When you're ready, Chris, let me know.
It is preparing to live to YouTube. Other than that, we're live on Zoom, and we're appear to be live on YouTube as well.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. Let's call the meeting to order. This is the January 8th, 2025 meeting of the Rockbridge County Planning Commission. Roll call, Commission Member Sabrizi.
Here.
Commission Member Kramer.
Here.
Commission Member Sandridge.
Here.
Commission Member Whitmore.
Here.
Commission Member Beebe present. I guess we will now have the election of officers. Chris, you want to?
Yes, at the beginning of the year, at the first meeting of the year, the Planning Commission holds the election of officers for the upcoming year. The election of officers include the chair, vice chair, and secretary. The current slate of officers is Mr. Tom Beebe as chair, Mr. David Whitmore as vice chair, and myself as the secretary. And this does require a motion and it can be done all at one time.
All right. Any discussion, fellas? Do we have
I make a motion to keep it the same.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Motion carries. Okay. We've also got in our handout the 2025 Planning Commission meeting schedule. Everybody's taking a look at those, and do we have a motion to approve those?
Motion to approve.
And I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we also have in our packet the electronic meeting policy, and it needs an annual renewal. So let's, Chris, do I need to just see if the guys have any questions and just proceed? Have you guys taken a look at it? It's the same one.
This would require a motion. This is the same one. You may recall in the last quarter of 2024, we adopted and updated the electronic meeting policy. But the purpose of putting on tonight's agenda is from here on out, we will do it on the first of the year to continue to be in compliance.
Okay, if you all have taken a look at it, do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the electronic participation meeting policy.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. All right. Important notices. In addition to citizens attending the meeting in person, citizens have several options to view or participate in the Zoom meeting webinar as described below. We will do our best to take citizen comment remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer comment. One, during the Rockbridge County Planning Commission Zoom webinar. The link is available on the county website to copy into the address line on your browser. To join by telephone, you may dial into one of the numbers listed on the county website. Webinar ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Planning Commission YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant, you will use the raise your hand feature. You can press the raise hand button on the bottom of your Zoom window or press *9 if you are calling in by telephone. At this time, we will proceed with the meeting. Citizen comments, Chris? Do we have anyone physically present to speak?
Not associated with that. Okay. Let me check online. If there's anyone online that would like to make a citizen comment, please utilize your raise your hand button now. Not seeing any. Turn the floor back to the chair.
Item number 6, approval of the December 11th, 2024 PC meeting minutes. We have a motion.
I make a motion to approve the December 11th, 2024 meeting minutes as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have 2 seconds. We'll do David Whitmore on the second. Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? No nays. Okay. The board reports. Chris, Board of Supervisors meetings.
Yes, so essentially, I think it's a safe statement to say no action items pertaining to zoning from the board meetings. From your December meeting, the Perkins rezoning, of course, on Route 39 will be on the January 27th Board of Supervisors meeting, as well as the Cooter application associated with the dog kennel on the dog kennel on Sulphur Springs Road, excuse me. Another update for the Board of Supervisors meeting, potential action items. Mr. Carol Comstock has resigned from the BZA, and we have I think we only have one application for the Board of Zoning Appeals, and that is Mr. Roy Farber. And so that obviously with the Board of Supervisors, that will be a recommendation to the court to appoint a member to the Board of Zoning Appeals. The courts actually appoint those, being a quasi judicial board. So that recommendation is probably coming up on this coming up Monday's meeting.
Okay.
There was no TCO meeting. There was no BZA meeting. As far as the Community Development Committee, we did meet on the 16th, essentially talk about the upcoming upcoming Board of Supervisors meeting, primarily the past Planning Commission, what was upcoming with the board, and then some discussion on zoning text amendments. Due to Martin Luther King Day on our normally scheduled meeting date, we have moved the Community Development Committee up to Friday, January 17th, 2025. And also would like to say, we almost put the Community Development Committee membership on this agenda, but all of these meetings, at least the one coming up on the 17th, is essentially contingent upon the board acting on these committees on their upcoming meeting this Monday to reestablish that committee, I should say. So
Okay.
there has been some discussion on what membership would happen. Currently, as you know, Mr. Beebe serves and Mr. Kramer serves. There has been some discussion of Mr. Kramer coming off, and this is discussion with Mr. Kramer, I should say, not
What?
yeah, like what? Yeah, none of that going on. But depending on the action of the board, we'll follow up accordingly. Also, I'd like to say that the solar committee, I sent y'all an email out last week, I believe it was. The solar committee will be reconvening on the 15th. That meeting will be held in this room or the extension, this room. I believe it's this room. Extension, then it's extension room on the 15th at 6. I apologize.
Right. 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock sounds right. And there is a notice of public meeting, obviously, throughout the building and online.
It is online? There is a notice? of public-
There is an agenda item online, yes.
Okay, it must have been just recent that,
No, it's been. It has its own section of the agenda center. So it's been it's been at least prior to the new year, a week. It's been posted for a week. So to back up, just a little commentary on that. Obviously, the game plan was for the solar committee meet a joint session with the solar committee, the board of supervisors, and planning commission, based on some feedback by planning commission members, solar committee members of the general public, and members of the board of supervisors. We felt it would be the best process moving forward would be for the solar committee to reconvene, discuss some of the issues that have been brought up throughout the process. And then most likely have a revised a draft solar ordinance, and then that will be distributed to the public, to members of the planning commission, members of the board of supervisors, that type of thing. And then hold that joint meeting. I would say sometime, I'd be surprised if we did not do that sometimes in February, tentatively on what the solar committee does.
Thank you, Chris. I think we're ready for item 8, Chris, unless there's anything else there you want to discuss. Let's do the proposed Irish Creek Agricultural Forestal Overlay District public hearing.
Yes, in attendance here, we have several of the members of the proposed district. I do have I'll try to do a brief PowerPoint for y'all. Did it showing up like this last time?
No, it was,
No.
right, you had it right.
Doing the same thing. All right, I'm just gonna have to do this. I apologize. I'm doing the exact same thing I did last time, but it's just not. But we weren't on Zoom previously. That might have been something to do. So I apologize on the half screen here. Tonight's public hearing is associated with an ag forest district in the Irish Creek area. As far as background on Irish Creek in Virginia, it was 1977. The Agricultural and Forestal District Act was passed. And these are some rough numbers. I'm confident on the 30 localities, but not as confident in the 760,000 acres. But I think that's accurate as far as what's in Virginia. The first ag forest district in Rockbridge County was created in 1999. We don't have any current agricultural forestal overlay districts in the county. So this is exciting to start talking about the potential of the Irish Creek ag forest district. So the process is briefly pause here. The process is the applications go to the Agricultural and Forestal Advisory Committee. They held a meeting today at 5:30, and I'll report at due time of what they did. They made a recommendation to y'all that's in front of y'all, but rather than to the Board of Supervisors, they made the recommendation to the Planning Commission, and that's a motion that y'all have in front of y'all. Districts are rural conservation overlays reserved for the production of agricultural products, timber, and maintenance of open space land. Ag forest districts are a completely voluntary agreement between the landowners and the locality not to convert their land into more intensive uses, such as subdivisions or non-agricultural uses. In return, the county agrees not to take actions to make infrastructure investments that will place increased pressure on landowners to convert their land in the district to more intensive land uses during the term of the district. As far as how you create a district, again, it's completely voluntary, but it requires, and this is an elementary map, it requires the districts can be created for 4 to 10 years. You need a core of at least 200 acres. So the core must be made up of contiguous parcels of land, but does not need to be owned by the same landowner. And it's pretty, I think of all the districts we had, I think it was, I can't recall one that was a one core membership of one sole landowner, one identity, if you will. Once that core is established, and the core is represented, of course, in that didn't go as planned. Bigger, I apologize. Once the core is established, and of course representative in the pink dot in the middle, anyone within 1 mile of the edge of core can join the ag forest district, is a qualifying landowner to join in that district. Again, these districts are voluntary, and any qualifying landowners can join. To encourage these districts, there's no fee associated with the renewal or the creation of new districts. We also assist in some mapping and some spreadsheets showing once a group of landowners establish that core, we can utilize the GIS then to do a 1 mile buffer and say, hey, these are the qualifying landowners in this area. This one, the Irish Creek area, was an easier mapping exercise than previously. And that's because once you go 1 mile from the core to the south, it hits national forest. And once you go 1 mile to the north, it connects to a very large landowner in Rockbridge County. So it wasn't as much mapping or shifting of the core, growing of the core, and growing of that 1 mile area versus other applications that we've been part of. Kidding. Sorry, it's not switching at all now. All right, apologize. Benefits of agricultural and forestal districts, land laying within the district used as agricultural and forestry production that already qualify for either, there's three types of land use taxation program. That would be agricultural, forestal, or at land use or open space, excuse me. The qualifying land would automatically qualify for the land use assessment, whether or not the local ordinance establishing a land use program has been established, as long as the requirements to qualify for land use taxation are met. And that has to do with minimum acreage, depending on if it's agricultural, forestal, or open space. The agricultural does have some income value associated with it, that you have to produce some tax information, I believe, that shows you have so much income derived from the land use that you're applying for.
Chris, they could, without this overlay district, they still could.
Yes,
Apply for that.
they still, Rockbridge County has a active, very active, I should say, land use taxation program. And so I think I shared with the committee previously, there's only been one time in the 20 some odd years I've been here that the board essentially publicly discussed doing away with land use taxation program. That was a very quick discussion, and we haven't had the discussion since that time.
It did go away, but this would supersede then.
Yes, the members would automatically qualify for that. It's my understanding. Yes. Local governments may not enact local laws or ordinance within a district which would unreasonably restrict or regulate farm structures or farming and forestry practices. Local ordinances, comprehensive plan, land use planning decisions, administrative decisions, and procedures affecting parcels of land adjacent to any district shall take into account the existing of such district and the purposes of this chapter. And this chapter is straight out of state law, is what is referencing the chapter. Local, state, and federal agencies must take into consideration the existence of the district when developing and implementing the policy. This policy must promote agricultural and forestry within the district. Special taxes for services cannot be levied on most property within the district. As far as benefits of the membership, district provide protection for members for the period of term and can be renewed after the initial term expires. Participation in the program offers some protection from eminent domain, acquisition of land or easements for power lines, roadways, or other infrastructure within a district is subject to review by the board to determine whether or not it will adversely affect the district. Property in the district is protected from ordinances that might limit customary farming and forestry practices. Districts must be taken into account by local planners when proposing ordinances or proposed zoning changes. And essentially, the catch-all is districts establish a community where like-minded individuals band together to preserve farming, forestry, and open land. So this would go, if the Board of Supervisors adopts it, this would go on the official zoning map that we house in the office, and then any future land use plans, depending if it's still valid, it would be included in that. So as far as the proposal in front of y'all this evening, it's obviously the proposed Irish Creek Ag Forest Overlay District, and in keeping with the color scheme, this is the core group there in red. The core consists of 283 acres, or 283.189 acres, consisting of several landowners in that area, which is common. And then the blue is anyone within 1 mile, obviously 1 mile east and 1 mile west. That consists of 147.256 acres with a total proposed within the district of 430.445 acres proposed. And so this was also included, this spreadsheet was also included in your package. And essentially, it follows that same color scheme. You will see it has the core parcels in blue, non-core parcels in blue and the core parcels in red. It has the name, landowner's name, the address, the city, state zip code, mailing address, I should say. It has the tax map color coded, whether it's core or non-core, the acreages per tax records, and then whether or not in the 2024 land use taxation program, whether or not the existing proposed members are in land use taxation. And then, of course, it totals the acreage. The only unusual part of this one, I probably told y'all individual, you do have this one in ND Ponics Incorporated. I think it should say incorporated there. Apologize. That's black because you can see 2 of their 3 parcels are in the core, and then 1 is not in the core. So that's why I left, that one particularly black. That concludes my presentation
Chris,
for this evening.
Quick question.
Yes.
Was there a minimum 5 acre size? I noticed there's a couple of 2 acre.
That would be for an agricultural use, yes. If I understand correctly, for land use taxation, we're talking about the land use taxation, who the Commissioner of Revenue administers and enforces the land use taxation. But it's my understanding for an agricultural acreage, the minimum is 5. For forestal acreage, I believe it's 20. So there are some on the list that would not qualify for land use taxation for agricultural forestal uses. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay, that's the end of the present.
If we open hearing, we'll be able to hear from.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we're having dialogue then.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure they don't need to talk during the hearing then.
No,
Unless they want to.
we certainly can or open the public hearing either way.
Okay, you guys are, let's go ahead and open the public meeting. At this time, we're going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone physically present who would like to speak?
I would just say that we certainly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all. My name is Jeannie Oliver. I'm South River District. I'm one of the property owners in Irish Creek. And our main goal is exactly what the purpose of this district is, which is to preserve and protect a really important piece of land that, as Chris said, is virtually completely surrounded by national forest land. And so our goal is to bring together as many of our landowners to say that we pledge to protect this land and preserve it for agricultural forestal use, and to make sure that we're all banding together to say we don't want, commercial development. We don't want uses that are outside of the notion of agriculture and forestal use, so that we can protect this primarily. And I don't want to say that I speak for everybody for this, but I believe that all of us are focused more on the notion of protecting and preserving this land for open spaces, so that we can protect the watershed, the natural resources, wildlife, etc. So that's our goal in doing this, is to connect ourselves in some ways to the conservation zoning of the national forest without going to the fully restrictive, unchangeable process of going through conservation easements. If that makes any sense at all.
It does.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Jeannie.
Thank
Is that it? Tony, jump up.
My name's Tony Tyree. My wife didn't make it tonight because she despises snow and ice, man. But what she said is what I'd like to reiterate. We're here to try to protect a piece of land that has been handed down for hundreds of years through generations. And it's just a residential area, and that's what we're trying to keep it as. It's agricultural. It's been logging done there for hundreds of years, and we want to preserve that. And that's exactly what the land development regulations say. It wants to preserve open spaces for clean air sheds, watershed protection, wildlife habitat, aesthetic purposes, and to provide a means for the mutual undertaking by landowners and local governments to protect and enhance agricultural and forestal land as a viable segment of the economy and an economic and environmental resource of major importance. And that's what our goal is here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Any other comments? If not, we'll go to the computer and phone. This time I'll ask staff if there are any citizens that would like to make comments from Zoom or phone.
Yes, we have one gentleman with the hand raised. If any of the attendees via Zoom would like to make a public comment, please utilize the raise your hand button. Steve, your name on the computer is Steve. You have the floor if you can hear us.
This is Steve Cater. Thanks for recognizing me. I just had a question, and that is, could you briefly outline the approval process? I'm curious about that. Thank you.
Steve, I apologize. Can you say that again, sir?
I think he asked, what is the approval process for this?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
So applications are made directly to the Office of Community Development. As far as what we've done so far, we did hold a organizational meeting with the majority of the members of the district on December 2nd, I think it was. And that's not required, but what is required is that it goes to the Ag Forest Committee. That meeting was held today at 5:30 in this room. They have made a recommendation to the Planning Commission that's in front of you, which we could detail when we get to the motion. Then the Planning Commission makes a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. This is a bona fide public hearing, obviously, with the Planning Commission. And then there's some notices associated with the Ag Forest District application that are required that planning staff did. Notices of public hearing, obviously, which the Planning Commission did. And then there's a second set of notices that will go to the Board of Supervisors. So in summary, the advisory committee makes a recommendation to the Planning Commission, and then the Planning Commission makes a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. The Planning Commission holds a public hearing, what we're doing, and then the Board of Supervisors is required to hold a public hearing as well.
Steve, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, my name is Steve Cater, Kator, and I'm in the South River District. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Steve.
Anyone else online would like to make a comment, please utilize the raise your hand button now. I would also like to mention that we've had 3 emails come in that in front of the Planning Commission now from Mr. Tyree, who spoke earlier tonight, Miss Georgia Pippin, who is a potential member, is the applicant for the Ag Forest District, and then also Mr. King was the third. So I'd like to recognize them.
Okay.
With that, I don't see anyone else with their raise their hand button. So I will turn the floor back over to the chair.
With no further comments, we will close the public hearing. Gentlemen, discussion?
What it's all about.
It's all good. Everybody,
Just had a couple questions for probably Chris. and
Dave.
staff. So how does this district affect neighboring landowners? I saw one bullet in your PowerPoint presentation about the, Planning Commission shall consider the overlay district when making zoning or land use recommendations or changes. It doesn't really hold any teeth in terms of landowners that opt out of participating, does it?
Well, and that follows state law, and there is it follows state law as far as the effective district. I'm gonna try to pull this up on my end and give you the actual language out of it. It states this is under 15.2-4312 effects of districts, last sentence on number B. Local ordinances, comprehensive plan, land use planning decisions, administrative decisions, and procedures affecting parcels of land adjacent to any district shall take into account the existing of such district and the purposes of this chapter. And this chapter, of course, is the Ag Forest District chapter. So it's not much to go by there as far as, it shall take into account, there's another section of ordinance that, that you can withdraw for sound and reasonable reasonings, it's sort of, it doesn't give us much guidance there. I will say that, depending on the use, obviously to back up a little bit, every by right use of a use adjacent to this continues to be a by right use. When you get into a special exception, the legislative actions, that's when this district has to be, the existence of this district has to be taken into account.
Okay.
I
Fair
know
enough.
that's not a great answer, but that's the answer I have for you.
And on the mapping, looks like there's a pretty big hole in the donut. You folks could probably answer it better than me, but looks like one of the larger parcels. Is that National Forest?
There is. Let me.
And then there's another large parcel adjacent to Miss Oliver's that I'm just wondering if why that landowner didn't choose to participate. Maybe if you go back to the map, I'm
Yeah.
not sure it's the same.
Let me share my screen. Hopefully this works a little bit better than previously. In this case, I'm actually going to share the GIS. Bear with me here.
And obviously no criticism on landowners who chose not to participate, but there's a couple large parcels in the middle of okay.
You can't do both.
Okay, gotcha.
Which one
These
is that?
parcels here. The pulse parcels that to go around to get everyone reoriented, and this shows up a little bit better. The red is of course the core here, and then with 1 mile to the east and west, we talked about that. That's the non-core parcel that qualified. The green on the map is the national forest, so that's going to be one of those holes that was in my presentation there. And then the pulse parcels are these two parcels here. And I did have a conversation with one of the pulses. And they are considering a open space or a conservation easement. And so it's always been my understanding. In fact, the last time the Ag Forest Committee met was in June of 15, I believe it was. And that was to withdraw a member of the Turkey Hill Ag Forest District at the time in order to place his property under conservation easement. And it's either twofold. One, you may not get your full tax credits for placing of your easements because the property's already encumbered, but also it's a voluntary transfer with an open space easement or a conservation easement. It's a voluntary transfer of development rights. And so when those are encumbered with an ag forest district, that could be problematic as well, is my understanding. But were those the two? And then this one is a Stephen and Kathy Garber. So that's who made the application. That's who has it. And to back up a little bit more, talking about the mapping of is the core. You can see what I'm talking about. Once you get south of there, you have a pile of a large amount of national forest. And then once you get to this area, it's primarily a large landowner.
Okay.
So the mapping was a little bit easier as far as the core and moving the core, modifying the core, and then how far that went, because again, you're constrained by the south and east and west, I should say.
And what is the term of the?
Sorry, the term is proposed, and we're having this the applications are made for a 4-year period. And that's not uncommon. It can be anywhere from 4 to 10 years, meaning 4, 5, 6, et cetera, up to 10 years. And with new applications for an ag forest district, it's not uncommon to go to the latter part of that one, see how it goes, go through 4 years, and then make the decision of where to go from there.
I assume that's your desire, 4 years to start.
Can you come on up? Speak it like that way. Audience can hear you. Okay.
Another point I'd like to make is this doesn't prevent any adjoining landowners who are not in the district from applying for any kind of building permits, any kind of special exception permits, anything they would like to apply for. It doesn't prevent anything. It doesn't affect their rights in any way whatsoever.
As I understand it, would take a special exception. We would take into account that it's adjoining.
That's correct. Yes.
I mean, so we could weight that.
Because of how you weight it.
Yeah,
It's a little fuzzy, the language.
Right. So, okay, just want to make sure I
And I
understood
don't want
that.
to speak for Ms. Tyler, but maybe the right to apply, obviously it does not diminish
Right.
the permitted uses as we said previously,
Right.
but it also does not negate or it would not,
Prohibit.
prohibit, yeah, thank you, prohibit applications adjacent or in the area or, you know,
Or, yeah,
outside
or
of the
anywhere
district. I should say.
outside the
Yeah.
It also doesn't prohibit ones in the district for applying either, right?
It could, depending on the board of supervisors. So that's a good transition. So in front of y'all have a motion with some conditions associated with it. And so if those conditions are approved by the board of supervisors, yes, it certainly would prohibit commercial activity, non-agricultural and forestal uses.
Right.
And that's primarily number 2. Back up a little bit.
Yeah, we haven't talked about the conditions yet.
Yep, it's a good time. So the no, sir, thank you. The Ag Forest Committee met and made a recommendation to the Planning Commission to recommend approval with the following condition: compliance with section 610.04-2 through 610.04-3 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations. Number 3 states, and I can read them both if needed, no new non-agricultural or forestal uses and or buildings, including dwellings, shall be permitted except for the construction of a dwelling for members of the owner, immediate family, or for persons who earn a substantial part of their livelihood from agricultural forestful operations on the same on the same property. With that being said, so let's deal with a campground or something. Let's deal with any special exception of a commercial nature. It would prohibit that condition and essentially number 2 as well would prohibit us from accepting an application for some sort of commercial endeavor for non-agricultural or forestal use.
So how that applies again? I'm sorry.
No new non-agricultural or non-forestal uses and or buildings, including shall be permitted, except for the construction of a dwelling.
But non-forestal, forestal would include recreation,
What type of recreation? Hiking?
hiking.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Wouldn't, well.
But there's no special exception for hiking. There's no
No,
special
I
exception
know,
for
I'm
hunting.
thinking about those things that would be a special exception.
Yep, and we have the same thing. The Planning Commission or the Board of Supervisors, I'm sorry, the Ag Forest Advisory Committee reviewed, and so it was good line of thinking there. Let's see.
So Chris, if I may, Commissioner Sabrisi and I spoke beforehand tonight. I think I might have led to some confusion because I think the -3 portion is pretty clear that nothing can be done other than except for agriculture and forestal uses, except for those exceptions here for the members of the owner's immediate family, persons who are in substantial amounts from there, so they can build dwellings. But if somebody were to want to build another house on their property, unless it was in these exceptions, they couldn't do it. If they want to do a wedding venue on their property, they couldn't do it.
So it's kind of like, well, it's kind of like when we did our easement. We have a limitation on how many houses we can build on the property, but this is more of a broader spec.
So that's pretty strong language. So I think that some of the discussions we had about the other things that could be applied may not be necessary.
Okay,
with
because
reading of this.
Ms. Oliver and I talked a little bit too, and I wanted to make sure that, their intent, that the conditions did cover the intent. And I'm just trying to figure out, what's, based on what I feel their intent is, what's the worst thing that could happen with these current guidelines. And so non-agriculture, non-forestal
Uses.
use is out of the question if we adopt that second condition,
Except for the exceptions that are listed there.
except,
There's exceptions.
right, and family dwelling stuff.
Yeah.
And
People that earn money off of that can still.
Right. The one thing I thought about, when I took a drive out there and, you think about, we're talking agriculture /forestal. This is forestal we're talking here, not agriculture.
I would say it's probably 410 acres of forestal land. Yes,
Right.
And that's ballpark. I could get you.
Now, one of the things that I would bring up is like, what's the worst that could happen? Clear cutting. That would be allowed
Absolutely, yes.
as long as it followed regulations.
Yes.
is there, I mean, can that be a condition? To,
It can't be a condition for an agricultural forestal district because you can't
can't
put any
put-
conditions against forestal uses. Allowed forestal uses still have to be.
Becomes
allowed.
a
I just, you all understand that that's a possibility. Yeah, right. This is not getting rid of that. Yeah. Okay.
So as far as the go ahead.
Yeah, there's no guarantee. That's the thing.
Yeah.
This doesn't,
Right.
So special exceptions, commercial horse show ground, private, and this is special exceptions in the A1 zoning district that this land is in and surrounded by commercial horse show grounds, campgrounds, private seasonal, country inns, lodges, resorts, minings, public utilities we chatted about, transmission, television transmission antennas, shooting clubs, ranges, wind energy systems and micro wind systems, special events, those type of things.
Why do they specifically call it telecommunication facilities and wireless facilities as being permitted by special exception versus the whole kitchen sink?
I think that was done for a unique application, to tell you the truth. There was one, it was in an existing ag forest district and they wanted to do a telecommunication, so we modified the ordinance. But the board, yeah, that's in there.
David, Rob, Tony, rather. Any other comments?
I just, I mean, everything else that I looked at, the comprehensive plan, I think just about every chapter has some support or encouraging of this type of thing. So obviously a denial would be not encouraging or supporting. But I do, you know, I think I understand the intent, and that's my main questions were just, and I think it's covered. So I don't believe I have anything, and it meets those 7 factors or whatever. We talked about that, Chris. That's in there.
Yes, in your agenda item, we gave you the criteria, factors we could, factors we considered, if you will. And that is straight out of state law, state code, 15.2-4303, 1 through 7.
Quite, what's number 3? What was that? I thought I highlighted it. The third one?
The third one is the nature and extent of land uses other than active farming or forestry within the district and the adjacent there, and in areas adjacent there too. Is number 3.
Okay, I wrote down I had a question, but I don't remember what the question is. So let's move on.
All right, we have already closed the public hearing and we've gone through our comments. Gentlemen, do we have a motion anyway?
I make a motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors that the applications to develop an agricultural/forestal overlay district with a core of 283.099 acres per tax records located on the east and west side of Irish Creek Road, Route 603, with other qualifying applications consisting of 147.346 acres per tax records within a 1-mile radius of the core in the agricultural and limited uses A1 zoning district be approved with the following condition: compliance with sections 610 period 04-2 through 610 period 04-3 of the County of Rockbridge land development regulations. Do I need to go into detail on
No,
that?
sir.
Okay.
We have a motion
I second.
and we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nays? The motion carries. This would go to the Board of Supervisors.
Yes, and that public hearing has not been scheduled yet, but tentatively sometime in February is what I've shared with the members of the Ag Forest District, proposed Ag Forest.
Great. Okay. Chris, zoning text amendment discussion.
I left that in there. Don't have anything prepared for you. Obviously, we talked about the solar committee and then meeting on the 15th. And so honestly, I think that amongst day-to-day business is going to take us through I won't say first quarter of 2025.
You got plenty to do.
We're going to be busy here for a little bit. Yep. And so appreciate Tony's comments on the draft solar ordinance. And if anyone else has any comments or obviously encourage the members of the public to get with staff, and we also encourage that as well.
I wish they were, I tried a couple times to be more specific on the comments, but these are just things that.
Tony, I'd like to see him too. I guess I should get with you. I'll get with you.
It was a group email. It's been
Yeah.
some
Okay,
weeks,
I got
so
that. I got
we
that.
can-
I mean, it wasn't line by line, change this to that, but it was things that a lot of which was already in there. But I said, it was kind of a stream of consciousness as I was doing after action of that whole solar form run.
You're doing your due diligence, buddy.
So
diligence.
I figure if I didn't write it down, I'd forget half of what I.
So essentially, and I think I said this during the committee comments, but based on discussion with planning commission members, board of supervisors members, solar committee, and members of the public to date, we felt it'd be beneficial to reconvene the solar committee and go from there.
I think it's a great idea, Chris.
Yep. And then immediately after that, I will do a track changes. Y'all have the last draft. From here on out, we'll do a draft track changes. So it's clear what has been modified since that last one. And we'll of course send that to y'all as soon as the solar committee.
Now, where was the location on the 15th? Is it here?
It's in the, extension office.
Okay.
That is, Adam, that is not us though. That is the,
That is the solar committee. Yes.
That's
sir.
just the solar
That
committee
is-
for the
that's
15th.
correct. Yes.
Okay.
and I asked Chris, we could attend, but we shouldn't participate is my
Okay.
understanding
Is
because
it problematic for
yeah.
two of them to attend?
But two of you could attend, more than two can attend, but don't sit next to each other. Don't talk about any
don't
business.
participate.
Yeah.
There are some members on the,
Well,
One
that's,
user with
and
more
that's fine too. It's in these type of meetings, the issue is you cannot, three of you cannot
Understand.
stand together and discuss public business.
It's waiting
If
the,
that happens, it's a public meeting and it needs to be noticed.
I
It's
won't
the
be
safest
there.
thing to do is
I
to
won't be
make sure
there.
that no more than two of you are at the meeting. That's safe.
I was just clarifying.
But if some of y'all want to go, then just
Oh,
make
you
sure you
gotta
don't sit together and don't talk about anything about the plan commission stuff.
okay.
I don't know anything about fly fishing. Is that what you said?
All right.
So we'll update y'all accordingly. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Chris.
And ironically enough, through the Ag Forest District, I shared with Mr. Suter, County Administrator, of course, and Mr. Dryden, it probably took me fivefold more time to get through the Ag Forest District than a normal application, just because we haven't done it for so long. I know I had to reiterate or re-review what state law said. With that being said, I feel like we have a very firm understanding of process moving forward, and then also, but it unearthed essentially a few zoning text amendments that might be coming up pertaining to ag forest districts. So the list, it's a long list, and we'll do our best to get through it.
Thank you.
Starting with the solar ordinance, I should say.
and the solar committee will be meeting in this room at 6 o'clock on the 15th.
I apologize. It's this room. Yes. Did my email say the extension room to y'all? I apologize. Let me verify that because it was a lot of communications there in a very short time. So I will follow up on that.
For some reason, I had that crossed up. I thought it was our joint meeting. That's why I said something about it. I was like, just making sure.
That was a good question, Adam. Thank you. Yeah.
And
All
the
right.
notices have been posted, so they got it. They got to say the board of supervisors meeting.
Chris, what's your agenda? Good? Are you done?
I am.
Thank you to the staff and John for all their hard work. And do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.